Oswego was hot as shit.
The heat was triple digits.
Was the motherfucking heat.
The heat affected me. I like had to lay down at one point.
Oswego is cool, right? Like it's not. It is somewhat forgotten.
It's the redheaded stepchild of Phish festivals.
I always thought that Oswego kind of got, at least initially, like it wasn't Went or the Clifford Ball or Lemon Wheel.
It was weird because it was just another stop on the tour. There was no break.
Like it didn't model those festivals. And I don't know because I wasn't at those. Oswego was my first.
I mean, they said they were going to scale it down. From what we had heard, all the lot rumors were that they were going to try to do something great for New Year's. So they were scaling down the festival.
They did Cypress months later in the same year. It was like 2 festivals in 1 year, basically.
There definitely was a feel. I feel like when I was there that there was like, you know, some kids that were walking around like, oh, this is cool, but it was not Clifford Ball or Lemon Wheel or something like that.
It was more like camping at a show. I'm assuming it's like what Dick's was. You're camping in the parking lot kind of thing. Except this was nothing but a concrete tarmac.
You know, I think now pretty much the general consensus is that Oswego counts as a festival.
Oswego was one of my favorites because like we kind of pimped it out.
So I was still a relative noob in 1999.
My buddy built a 67 Volkswagen bus from scratch with another friend of mine. And it had like the Westphalia pop top and like the whole thing.
At that time, I was with a girl that I had been dating in college, and she had actually introduced me to like the live Phish experience. And so, you know, she and I were doing the tour at the time.
And we took that to Oswego, and we had a generator and a blender and like a wok.
We left Jersey after this show, the Born to Run show. Got back to Baltimore like 4 a.m. I got dropped off at the RV I was going up with the people in, and we hit the road. And we got up to Oswego like 9, 10 in the morning, I guess, and then sat in traffic for 4 or 5 hours.
And we were making chicken quesadillas and grilled cheese and margaritas and strawberry daiquiris and all types of shit. So we were like,
you're pro at that point. I mean, after Lemon Wheel, you're like, fuck this. I'm not going bareback again.
I was running the Chamber of Commerce and the fucking.
Right.
So we drove up from PNC actually the next day. We stayed at my parents', and I didn't know that traffic was a situation. You know, I thought it was a concert, right? I knew we were going to stay up there.
But we were set up at like the corner of like Shakedown and fucking Avenue A. Like we had a great spot. Everybody walked by us.
So we left at, you know, I think like 9 or 10 in the morning. Like, we'll get up there. We'll have the show's not until 7:30. Like, we'll be able to park and it'll be great. And we got about 4 hours up there and then just got stuck in. I mean, it must have been 4 hours of traffic.
But we were in the venue by about 2 in the afternoon. We were in Maple.
I mean, we sold out of everything immediately. Like we had tons of food to sell, and it like the first day it was gone. So like we were flush. Like we had money.
We sat in just this ass load of traffic, finally got in, and it was like there was nothing to set up. Like we didn't have any time for that. Like I think I pounded a beer and we literally like fast walked over to the concert venue.
Yeah, they had sections. It was maple, and then there was another tree of some kind, or maybe we've dealt with syrup. I don't know.
And we were like, people didn't have money to get food, so they traded us. Like one guy, dude, this ended up biting me in the ass later, but guy was like, I don't have any money, but I have a lot of liquid acid, and can I trade you for food? And I guess like another buddy of mine was like, yeah, sure. And just handed him a box of Kix cereal, and the guy just like dumped like dosed the Kix or something.
I just remember my buddy being like, dude, we're in Maple. Remember where we were? And I was like, dude, we have an RV. Nobody else here has an RV. I think I'll find my way back. But
and then at Polaris Amphitheater, like a week or so later, we were driving in, and I was just like chomping down Kix because it was like whatever was in the car. And
yeah,
like,
not thinking about it.
No, and I tripped my balls off. That night was insane.
And we literally like walked into the concert park as they started playing Tube. I mean, it was like on the money. We walked in, and the first note they came out on stage, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe we made it.
So one of the things that I loved about Camp Oswego was they had this area called the Green, and at every Phish festival there's a little interactive village, you know, the Ball Square or Went Central, and as we will get to if you keep tuning in, Sunken City in it, which is the perfected version of it, but there was these little interactive engagement areas that you could participate in and go into these structures, and from a foam house to, you know, whatever it is, a post office.
They had something called the Green, right? So you got to picture if you're standing there looking at the stage, the Green was over to the left, like up by the stage, whereas like the Garden of Infinite Pleasantries was all the way in the back by the entrance. So you had all this bleed.
I was, you know, in the Green, experiencing it, interacting, when all of the sudden an entire troop of they, in my mind, they're Boy Scouts or modeled after the Boy Scouts, or, you know, a camp troop with counselors, and they came through and they set up shop in the middle of the Green with this ginormous s'mores, but they made a huge spectacle out of it.
But it was more like a vendor shakedown row kind of thing. It had a feel of that.
That sounds familiar, but something similar to that, where it was like a whole different kind of carnival going off to the side.
You know, it was like doing it like a camp drill or something, you know, where there's a whole order of command and a whole bunch of things being said, you know, and done, you know, but the result of it was that they made the world's largest s'mores. S'mores.
I'm gonna say it. There was a Ferris wheel again. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure I went on it a second time, but I don't know.
It was this giant, you know, it was huge. And then, of course, at the end of it, and they had everyone help, and I'm sure it wasn't very sanitary, but they had everyone help assemble it, and then they kind of pieced off little things and passed it around, and everyone ate it. And that doesn't sound so mind-blowing, but on a head full in the summertime at a Phish festival in the Green, when everyone's doing that dressed up in costume and in character, and with a bunch of Spunions playing along, it's a spectacle.
There were a lot of vendors and there were food, but I mean, yes, they had some installments, but you could tell that if anything took the hit with them trying to scale it down, it was that aspect of it.
Oswego was very much different than the first three, in the fact that there were other artists there.
The Green was on the outside, and there was a little place called the Echo Lodge, and the Echo Lodge had other bands playing.
We did catch Del McCurry played.
And it had The Slip, it had Del McCurry, Sun Seals, Bob Moses, which is amazing to think about. You know, legends.
It seemed almost like a real, more a festival in the biblical sense of the word.
Having legends play outside your festival gates allows you to invite them in and on the main stage, which is what Phish did. And of note, Phish did it with two of the performers that were playing at the Echo Lodge, Sun Seals and Del McCurry.
The entertainment during the day was not a third set of Phish. It was other bands.
And there was like a nice little blues jam, and I thought that that was really cool. And so then I thought like, oh, that's the norm. Like there will be other music at a Phish festival.
And the reason that's significant is because both Phish covered a song by both of them. It had been covering a song by both of them, and that would be "Beauty of My Dreams" for Del McCurry and "Funky Bitch" for Sun Seals.
And I really liked having the other bands. It was cool to be able to go see Sun Seals and Del McCoury. I had never seen either one of them before.
So when Phish got to invite these legends on stage, it wasn't just to play, and it wasn't for Chata's torture sit-in. It was so that they could play on their own originals with Phish, which I imagine Phish did as a vanity act.
We checked it out. Sun Seals, I thought, was very good. Dell was okay.
The problem with Phish bringing on special guests at their festivals.
Do you remember Sun Seals came out and played Funky Bitch with them, which was really cool.
As relayed to me by Trey during the Fare Thee Well rehearsals, was that, we talked at the Fare Thee Well rehearsals, we were talking about bringing on other special guests, Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, and Trey's point was, hey, people are flying in from all over the world, friends of his are flying in from all over the world to see him play with the Grateful Dead, and more than that, they're flying in from all over the world to see the Dead.
It was cool to see Funky Bitch with Sun Seals on stage. It was cool to see them do the Dell bluegrass shit.
So transfer that to Phish, and that's my philosophy too. And the about when I go see Phish, I'm going to see Phish because I love to see lots of music. Who doesn't love to see a legend live, of course? But, not at the expense of my mind-melting, psychedelic astronaut, transcendental experience.
I thought that both of them were tasteful. There was an article I read somewhere, an interview with Dell, maybe it's in Bro Bible, that he's talking about playing with Phish and how, they were trying to decide what songs to do, and he wasn't too sure about it because they're a psychedelic thing and he's a bluegrass. But that really stood out.
With Camp Oswego, it was, to my mind, great went moments aside, moments of the Lemon Wheel, including the ambient set, and moments at Clifford Ball. It wasn't, none of those are Phish's best shows of those respective summers. They were solid for Festival Phish, and Oswego was kind of when they broke out of that, and they did some monster jams. And again, all of these festivals had highlights, but Oswego had a number of them that made it really, they had the Iculus, Smoke on the Water Jam, back in the Iculus, Cat Scratch Fever, the Catapult, the whole, the Phish experience. And so what is Sun Seals doing playing Blueslets endlessly with Trey on my knees?
It was so fucking hot, okay? Like, out of anything and everything that I could remember from Oswego, it was the motherfucking heat.
The heat was triple digits. There was no escaping it. There was very little shade.
Oswego was hot as shit.
It was like 100 degrees hot out and like 100% humidity. It was just a dripping wet, soaking wet fucking experience.
I found there's, the perimeter had a fence. And because of that, there was a slight shadow. And the shadow was about this wide.
Just so dirty, and everyone was just covered in like dust.
And a lot of it was, semi-miserable.
And I tried to curl up in the shadow because it was all I could do to get away from the hot sun.
It was hot as shit. Like, it was like dangerously hot.
It was a 2-day festival. You had to get ice on day 2. You had to. There's no way there was a cooler made back then that kept the ice cold in that fucking heat.
The heat affected me. I like had to lay down at one point on the second night during the second set in the grass, and they had to bring me over water, and
And I'm talking just a tractor trailer full of ice, and you would wait in line for an hour, hour and a half to get a bag of ice. And it was a big fucking bag of ice.
It was hot. Oh my God, it was hot. I do remember it was like sweltering.
But it was expensive, at the time for a big giant bag of ice. It was still like, it's going to be $20. Maybe it was 10. I don't know. It was a lot of money for a bag of ice at that time. I know that for sure.
I totally went way too hard at it. And the thing was, we had the AC that we could run in the RV. So we had, I wasn't as used to it. And then sitting there, we went in for the first set and then didn't leave and stayed. And then the second set. And by the time they were halfway through the second set, I was seeing colors,
And by the time you carry it back to your car, it's half melted. It was that fucking hot.
And like the tarmac was a good 10 to 15 degrees hotter than like the rest of the area. And so like we ended up not even we just like basically slept in the car for, 2 days.
Summer tour is always hot. So don't get me wrong. I mean, that's just how it is in the summer, but this wasn't really the same. There was a level of humidity that was just above the heat, and the combination of both just made it an absolute sweltering mess for the most part.
But I remember curling up, trying to wait out the heat, and then of course Phish brought it. So
Day 2 really contained the magical moments for me, though. The Runaway Jim that opened the second set is by far and away my favorite version of Runaway Jim that I've seen or heard. I just absolutely love the energy, the vibe, and I can still, when I listen to that, like picture where we were sitting, and we were kind of off like to, I guess it would be, if you're looking at the stage to the right, if you're looking at the stage, and we were like kind of on this like raised hill, and everybody was just like, every single person was dancing their asses off to that Runaway Jim. And it did get a little type 2, and there was some moments where you could just tell like everybody had kind of melted into that moment.
I remember what I believe to be the slowest build Piper ever. And it built slowly and got really fast, like Piper used to back in the day. Like it wasn't just about a slow build Piper. It was about the acceleration through that song that would just continue. And I think that gets lost when people talk about the slow build Piper, but the Oswego version is an incredible example of what a real slow build Piper was, because it would start out slow and it just gained fucking speed, and it was on an upward peak the entire fucking time through that song. And that Piper fucking slayed.
Whole Iculus thing was interesting with the what were they saying, cat scratch fever and smoke on the water, something where the same song. Trey went into this whole thing, but he seemed like he was on something. It seemed like he was really high for that whole Iculus thing.
There was a Wilson at the end. There was almost a 20-minute Harry Hood with fireworks for the encore. So like there was a great Fluffhead that ended the show. So I got some of these huge musical pieces. And, and I was still working on like, what is Gamehenge? Like, who the fuck is Iculus? What book is he talking about? Like I didn't know.
So the Meatstick dance, or Meatstick, whatever, this was a big thing. Like they wanted to beat the Guinness World Record of the biggest simulated dance, which at the time was the Macarena.
2 nights before Oswego, I'm trying to remember if it was the first night of that. I think it was the second night of that. Trey did this whole thing like during the second set, like, hey, we're gonna try and break the world record for this dance.
The Guinness was there. The Guinness World Record book fucking holder people were there to witness this and judge it and everything.
Sophie Dilhoff, I can't believe I remember that name. Sophie Dilhoff came out and did the Meatstick with him and Mike, like in the front, and like taught everybody the Meatstick.
I got handed a Xerox piece of paper with the moves on it, so you could learn it. It had like a little dude, doing this like a little stick figure.
I remember they like kind of did an example like this is how it goes and like da 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 da, and they did the meat stick and like everybody was doing it, but like you would hop to the right and everybody around, like every other person was hopping to the left.
You could tell like some people were like doing it the right way, and um, other people were just like, "What the hell is happening?" So it was funny, um, and that was one of those like, "What are these guys doing?"
I just remember thinking to myself, there's no way we're getting credit for this. Like, this is a major fail as he looked around. There's just no possible way.
I was able to do it. I went pro meat stick. Penny, my friend Penny, when she got married, instead of doing like the electric chicken or whatever, the electric slide, they did the meat stick, and we all had to do the meat stick at the wedding. So
Yeah, it was just an absolute disaster for what it's worth. But I was in it and I did it and I tried. I know I tried, but I can't. The rest of the people around me, they were barely trying. I mean, at least in the section or area that I was in, it was not. It was definitely not cohesive. It was fucking disastrous. But it was fun for what it was, and I guess I'm glad I was part of that. But yeah, big fail, big fail.
It's like a kid walking into Disneyland the first time. You're like, I can't believe this. What do I want to do first? You and I do just remember like the vibe of the crowd was celebratory, and even despite the heat and it wasn't great accommodations wise. I was right out of college, so I didn't really care. Like I can sleep wherever. I'll sleep under the car. Um, but the vibes and the kind of the camaraderie of the whole experience just really struck me.
I remember this one guy came by. We were all tripping pretty hard at the end of the night, and we had a lamp on a table. And this guy came by that was like selling balloons, and he asked to use our lamp. And he pulled out like two like grapefruit wads of money. Like he pulled out like two, like literally like I couldn't believe how much money this dude had. And he just puts it on our table and just starts like stacking out like hundreds and I mean like tens of thousands of dollars. And we were like we were tripping hard and we're just like staring at him count, like his hand was moving so quick. And one of my buddies goes like, it's going to cost you to use the lamp, like just break it, just a ball breaky thing. And the guy was like, how about I stab all of you right now? And like we were like, again, we're on acid, it's fucking 3:30 in the morning, the festival's over. And we were just like, do we just fucking kidnap this guy and leave now? Like, or just drive out into the night? And then we all just laughed about how crazy of an idea that was.
yeah, the scene had really changed, and you could tell the dumb out drugs, like I like to call them, were slipping in. People taking farmies, and you were getting that kind of vibe in. And
But that was a sinister moment. Like it got a little weird. Like that was when I started to like, I wasn't naive at all before, but it's like Oswego and Cyprus was when like the dark side of late night festival walking around, kind of you became aware that like there were some very fucked up people there, like assholes, like people there straight just to do dirty pressed pills, and that was like when it started to get like weird, I feel.
I guess I saw my days as numbered after it. I like was watching it and I was like, it went from, in my mind, this pure thing to something that we kind of had to do the fourth one because we'd done the other three.
And having that experience and seeing all of these people, like this community had popped up in the middle of Oswego County Airport, and it was just unlike anything I had experienced.
The morning after Camp Oswego, as we were packing up an RV, it was an RV with 10 of us in there, made for sits. And as we were packing up We were one of the last people to go, and it was a post-apocalyptic scene in that you just had piles of trash everywhere.
The intention was we were going to leave after the show. Like people were going to hang out. We'll get on the road. And if we could get like a couple hours away, even just get like an hour away, then we can like pull over to a rest stop. We'll sleep in the car and drive the rest away back to my parents' house in the morning.
And you had the cat and mouse game of a bunch of city folk and, you know, weekend warriors and people at their very first, you know, summer jam band festival. You know, did people that were there for the rite of passage, dumping massive amounts of trash while you had Green Crew picking up massive amounts of trash.
So we get back to the car, and it was just an absolute clusterfuck. Like there were cars there was no, everybody was leaving out this way. Like some cars were going one way, some cars were going another way. Like it was completely indescribable, the mess, the chaos, and like.
Of course, we needed to get to Canada, which meant we needed to quickly go through our supplies of anything that would have an issue at the border. And I remember, in my mind, it was kind of, you know, hazy, like literally physically hazy. But that could have just been me.
After a while, some people are just like, forget it, like turn their cars off where they were and just kind of hung out. So we didn't even attempt to leave. We kind of hung out. We slept in the car for a little bit. We walked around, kind of took in the scene, and then I think we probably got into the car and passed out until like 6 or 7 in the morning, and then slowly started to kind of make our way out of the festival.
And I saw a friend of mine whose name I'll change on the spot. We'll say Danny, not his real name.
And I think and I don't remember specifically, but I remember like the sky getting lighter, and I just remember kind of crawling along, and maybe took us like 3 hours to get out of there, maybe 4. And you know, and then we had whatever drive back to New Jersey, but the experience was worth a little bit of that chaos, at least.
And my last memory, my departing view of Camp Oswego, as they're kicking out the very last people to leave, which was us, was watching my friend Danny walk around with a skateboard clutched around him, you know, like a security comfort blanket, going, "Where's Danny? Where's Danny? Has anybody seen Danny?" And nobody wanted to say, "Aren't you Danny?" But instead we packed up and headed off to Canada.
I'm trapped here as my senses